a great collaboration, and COVID gave us this little platform where we can beam into your homes and taste the wine, which I think is really great. I hope this sort of sticks around. And Jane came up with the name, What Was I Drinking? Give us some little insight into that one, Jane.
Well, it's kind of like the best and the worst. If you've been somewhere and you wake up that next day and you go, what the hell was I drinking? How did that happen? Or on the other side of the coin, it's like, what was I drinking? That was extraordinary. So it kind of covers everything, really. And it also covers everything from wine to spirits to Seppelt's raspberry cordial,
That's
so
right.
Yeah, it's pretty much everything covered.
Yep. And we're drinking a great wine tonight. Has everyone got a glass of wine in their hands? You certainly don't need to have this wine, but we hope that you are enjoying the wine of your choice, so you can drink along with us and have a bit of fun. So we might sort of get into it, Jane. What do you reckon?
Let's jump in.
Yeah. So we're going to, I'm going to get Jane to talk us through the wine. So the wine that we're trying today is Ballycroft, and it's their American, oh dear, you hold yours up, Jane. There we go.
It's their small berry Shiraz, and because they've got such a small production, this is a really cool homegrown project that's just hung in for 25 years. And Sue and Joe Evans have got a gorgeous little spot on the bottom end of Greenock, towards the back of Seppeltsfield. And they've been there since 97. And 98, they got some cuttings off of an old selection Shiraz out the back of Greenock that was planted in 1918. And they put in 10 acres, and they've never taken more than 8 tonne. And they've always run it as a permaculture property. They've always used a stack of sea salt and whey sprays when Sue's sister Tracy used to make cheese there. And so everything they do in the vineyard is designed to give small bunches, small berries, and not a lot of leaf. So essentially, you got this extraordinarily concentrated Shiraz thing that's all about small berries, surface area to volumes, more all the goodies in red wine are in the skins. So you've got this extraordinarily concentrated thing coming off 22-year-old vines that are taken as cuttings on their own roots from something that survived from 1918. So we're looking at the small berry Shiraz, and they split it. They never take more than 8 tonne off 10 acres, and they split it to old, dried out and shaved American oak, or old, dried out and shaved French oak. And we've got the American oak from 2017.
So interestingly, they're calling out the oak variety, the start. So it's an American oak. What else do they do? Do they do other types of oak? Do they do French? Do they do Hungarian? Do they do other types of oak, or is it all American for these guys?
No. They split it half and half, but they never blend it back. So it's either. So you can buy 2017 Ballycroft small berry Shiraz that's been in French oak or American oak, and they never make. I mean, I think the whole make for this is like 60 boxes of each. So you've never got very much at all. And it's all sold cellar door or from their newsletter, and they do everything. The family does everything from go to woe. And the beautiful thing about this is Joe was working at Rockford. So when they planted in 98 and they bought the property in 97, back in the day, 93, 94, 95, I was working at Rockford myself. And that was when Chris Ringland was the winemaker. Joe was there, and Dave Powell was there before he started Torbreck. So there's this alumni where old vine Shiraz, hand picking, extended pump overs by basically plunging, making a hole in the cap, old slate fermenters, basket pressing. That whole idea was kind of what Joe picked up when he was there. And of course, after years with Chris there, he went to Greenock Creek and learnt that, and that's where he picked up the idea of the dried out and shaved barrels, giving you not so much oak oomph, but it's kind of like a submarine oak that just slides in under the fruit and holds. And it's so integrated. I mean, you know, when you talk to Sue and Joe and say, what's the big thing about your wine, they say balance. Because if something's big fruit and big elegant oak locked up, then it can handle the bigger alcohol that comes with less foliage and fruit ripeness, not sugar ripeness. So, you know, he's sitting at 15%, and you'd be flat out telling that from the amount of fruit on the palate. This is do you remember when we were kids? Well, you may not, I'm a bit older. We used to have this thing called Morella Jubes. They used to be, it was like
Does anyone know them?
A soft, chewy lolly with tiny sugar crystals on the outside.
Oh, yeah.
And they were just so intensely flavoured. And this is like that. This has got that. It's got that. It's like, it's American oak, but it's not oak shavings. It doesn't smell like pencil. It doesn't smell like pencil shavings. You know, and you expect to feel it kick in at the sort of back end of the mid palate, and it doesn't.
No.
It just slides straight through like a jolly great red carpet unrolling.
It is.
It's juicy fruity.
It is, and it's big, but gosh, it's balanced is the perfect word for this wine. And that oak, you can see it coming through, but there's nothing about it that smacks you in the face. It's so integrated with the fruit. The tannins are soft and it's beautiful. Yeah.
And look, it's got a stealth enclosure, you know, and Joe and Sue said, decant it, double decant it. About 2 hours before which I did. But hey, it's ready to roll. I reckon you could pop that in the fridge if you wanted to have a glass a night for 2-3 nights in a row. I don't think it's going to lose anything. So,
hey, Jane, we've got a question here. Getting back to that oak around, you know, the two parcels that are split, and you've got French over here and American over here. What can you tell people about what they might expect to see that's different, and why winemakers would use the two different country of origins for the oak treatment?
Essentially, American oak has always been about vanillin and kind of like almost like if you pop your nose in an American oak barrel, sometimes after it's kind of been made, sometimes the oak will smell like warm marshmallow. You know, it's got some really nice sweet notes, and it's got a lot of power, a lot of oomph. French oak, generally speaking, is a lot more elegant and a little bit more spice and lift. And I asked Joe to give us which one he thought was travelling best. And he really likes this because it's so understated. And it's a really nice thing to show people who are expecting American oak to be the sledgehammer. And this is like this is a steel gauntlet in a velvet glove. This is a nice piece of work.
It really is.
And I'm not just saying that because I know them. It's just I haven't tried one of Joe's wines for a couple of years. And I've got to say, but also maybe we've got lucky because 2017, they got twice as much rain in the winter in 2016, set the vines up really well. And they had a mild autumn and a mild growing season. So they picked it a lot later than the Valentine's Day that they normally do. So it's just got that lovely huge amount of fruit that soaked up the oak and completely masks 15% alcohol.
Now, it
before
really does. You can't tell that alcohol. I agree.
I just have to do a food matching check because these are my mini sausage rolls. I thought I might have been a bit too heavy-handed on the fennel seeds, but these are beef and Linky's bacon. So I just need to do a quick taste test because we don't care. We're homegrown here. We like to do food and wine matching on our session.
But we like to keep it real, not too fancy. I love a sausage roll match with anything, quite frankly. My opinion, they work really well. What's your verdict on that one, Jane?
Fortunately, actually, the fruit cuts straight through the beef and bacon, and the fennel seeds are just floating along the top. I think that's a mighty fine combo.
There you go. I reckon you're on a winner with that one, for sure. One thing
More in the freezer, folks, and my recipe's on my Facebook page.
Excellent. One of the things I find really interesting, and I always like to ask and find out, is how did the name come about? So Ballycroft. What's the reference for that, and why does that name exist for them?
I went to high school with Sue's older sister Tracy, and Tracy was a wizard in arts, and has gone on to arts history to the highest degree. And she always wanted to make cheese. So in the early days, Ballycroft was cheese and wine. And Sue's parents come from England. Joe's family goes back to Scotland. So they came up with this Gaelic combo where Bailey means basically village, Bally, village, and croft means acres that are arable, so a farm. So this is basically the village farm.
Yeah, nice.
And that's where Ballycroft comes from. And the label is Tracy's take on an old tarot card with
because it
cheese.
does look like a card. I had a lot of people saying it looked like old Italian cards, but you can see the reference to the cheese on there because it's
like an old tarot card, and it was cheese and wine, but everything came from the same property. Yeah. So they would use the whey from the cheese as a foliar spray with sea salt, so that promoted the idea of small berries, less foliage. Yeah, not that one that's long in my I can see the questions coming through. That's magic. It's pretty fabulous to have someone watching. That's magic. Thanks for watching,
good.
folks.
And if you do have questions, by all means send them through. It's great to be able to answer them live as we're going along. And this question's come about from a cellaring perspective, and I feel like I know the answer to this one. It's a big wine that's got a lot of life left in it. I don't think we're seeing anything of its potential yet. What do you think for a wine? So for this 2017 vintage, what do you think its potential is from a cellar? If it's cellared properly, what do you reckon?
It's a 3-year-old, so it's a youngster. I'd have to be honest and say I'm pleasantly surprised at the amount of fruit expression. It's literally leaping out the glass. And I think because of the integration, you can see that there's a solid platform of tannin that the fruit's sitting on. But I reckon it's going to unroll very gracefully. I would be very surprised if it doesn't really hit its chops in about 4 or 5 years' time and just hold. Yeah. There's nowhere else for that fruit note integration to go. And the aromatics are already starting to lift off.
That beautiful acidity. It's fab. It's a cracking wine. Now, on that, it is a cracking wine. I pegged this at being a lot higher in price point than it actually is. So can you talk to around how people can, if they wanted to buy it, how would they do that, and what's it going to set them back?
Okay, I have to go to cheat notes. Okay, are you ready? Now, everything, before I go to my cheat notes, everything at Ballycroft is 100% family owned, family done, everything. And they've got this super cool thing where they're the first folks to get the plug-in car, the electric car.
Oh, yeah.
And they're the first folks. They've got this Leaf. I think it's a Nissan Leaf. Okay. And it's got this very cool battery arrangement, and it's called like V2G, and it's coming, right? Okay. It's not really here yet, but V2G means vehicle to grid. So they've got an electric car that you can plug in. So there's a port when you come visit Ballycroft to plug your electric car in, and they've got one as well. But in the not too distant future, the charged up battery of the car of an evening is going to plug into the grid that is the house and winery, and run the house and winery overnight.
Oh, wow.
So these
That's
guys,
mental.
These guys are not only on top of their winemaking and the viticulture and this cool grid stuff, but before we do the price, I just want to give a plug to something else they do.
Oh, please do.
It's great. Oh, is that coming? It's grape jelly.
Jelly for your belly.
It's grape jelly made out of one old black currant, not black currant as in black currants, but it's an old black drying grape currant variety that they've got trellised over the back of the veranda. Yep. And they get about 100 kilos a year and make it into grape jelly. And not this year because they didn't get much giraffe. They've got giraffe planted. Yeah. And they make sauce out of the giraffe when they finish the pressing. They take all this, they scrape the inside of the press, make it into giraffe sauce. And if you can get it, Annie, they just used it at the Greenock pub on their community pie 6 months ago. And it was the cream on the cake.
So when you say the community pie, what do you mean by that? For the folks that aren't here in Barossa, can you explain a bit about what that is?
The Greenock pub, which is Sue and Joe's local, because like next to the Greenock pub is the Greenock post office run by Annabelle, and Annabelle Mitchell sends their wine out to the world from their newsletter. So it's really a seriously homegrown local
community.
And the Greenock pub, Greenock Hotel, the Greenock, is doing a magic job at the minute, 120 takeaway meals a night, Friday, Saturday. They've got an idea called the community pie, and they take all the ingredients from local. The pie's $24 and $4 goes to a really local charity. So when Sue and Joe's giraffe sauce was on the pie, it was I think they had sweet potato on the side. It's not really a pie in the classic sense. It's a piece of pastry loaded with the beef, almost stew, and then a pastry lid on top. And the pastry comes from Carême Pastry, and they choose a local farm. So when it was a lamb pie, they got the lamb from Hutton Vale at the back of Angaston.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing is from local producers. Yeah. And we got them in one, and it goes for a month. And we got them up over 500 pies.
Nice.
So
isn't that wonderful?
The giraffe sauce went on top. So you can get the wine at the Greenock pub, but your best bet is to get on their newsletter at Ballycroft, or get in touch with Sue and Joe at Ballycroft, and it's info@ballycroft.com. That's just BALLYCROFT.com. Or you just ring. If you get on the website, there's a mobile phone number, and that takes you straight to Joe.
Oh, look, we are kicking it old school. That is brilliant. I love that.
And you can book in and go and have a taste. Yeah. You can book in and get the grape jelly and the giraffe sauce when it's in. It does go pretty quickly. But also, they grow. They've got a stack of citrus and fruit trees, and they've got a mountain of wick-fed, rainwater-fed vegetable gardens, and they supply to local restaurants and pubs everything from asparagus to broad beans.
Yeah, right.
That's the whole idea of Ballycroft. And
of course. That makes sense.
Acres where everything's used.
Yeah.
But they've gone that one step further to the electric car, the Leaf, that's coming with the V2G plug-in. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I mean, it's blowing my mind, but I think that's fantastic. Yeah. So just to recap on that, so you can visit the website. You could, and on there are the details, but you can go to info@ballycroft.com as an email. There we go. Jane's going to be spreading the
jelly on
fancy butter. You got fancy butter, or is it just a fancy butter holder, Jane?
I've got a fancy butter holder that I got from the second-hand shop.
Nice.
And I'm putting salted butter on a piece of, this is Tanunda Bakery bread, folks. It's extraordinary. It's what they call their traditional, and you get it cut medium, and it toasts up like
I can hear that
school.
crunch. I love it.
Yeah, and it cracks, and it's only the butter and the topping holding the bread together.
So would you have that jelly with, I will get back to the price on it, don't worry.
$50.
There you go.
49. It's actually 49.
$49. And I thought it was going to be around the 60 from just by tasting it and not knowing the price point. So
it does punch above its weight, and
I think it does. And especially because I think from that cellaring potential, it's a cracking wine. But also, what I think is really interesting about what they're doing there, and Joe's obviously had great experience. Oh, that looks good. So would you eat that? Is that just like jam, or would you put meat with it?
It's a bit like it could do a number of things. It could do the same job as cranberry sauce with white meat.
Yeah.
You could use it as a glaze on ham. If you put it on a ham, I think, and it's fantastic just as a sweet jam. If you had some homemade scones, this with clotted cream would be magnificent. It's kind of like it's an old-fashioned varietal. I might just have to dip it in the jar. It's like an old-fashioned varietal. I don't know if you can see the colour.
Come over to the bottle. Come closer to the wine bottle. There you go.
There. It's like a combination. It's like a kind of combination of rhubarb and cranberry. It's really lovely.
So just going back there. So this is a Shiraz that we're having, but at Ballycroft they also do some quite unusual varieties. I think particularly for Barossa, but also for Australia. So the Durif, which you've mentioned, which goes into the Durif sauce. And then
they do make a Durif.
And then they make a wine out of it, and the Montepulciano. So really interesting to have those varieties in Barossa. Can you tell us why that sort of came about?
Well, the Durif is an old school. I think it probably came from back in the day when the Barossa was the vineyard of the Empire, 1890 through 1915. And we really were making boatloads, literally, of fortified wine for the British Empire. And anything like Durif and Grenache and Shiraz that the old timers call growing for sugar. It wasn't hard to get them ripe, to get the sugar load up, and so you could make really good fortifieds, vintage port, tawny port, ruby port, and it made a really good charge for the brandy pot still because your alcohols were so high. So I think Durif is probably a bit of a remnant from that, but it makes a really, it's a bit from the same school as Mataro. It's kind of a fairly big, solid ramrod of a wine, and this year, 2020 vintage, they only got 120 kilos because it was such a small take. So Joe split it and popped it in the Shiraz. So there will be 60 kilos of Durif in each of the Shirazes. But normally they make it as a straight varietal, and I'm a big fan of it. Mind you, that's probably why the sauce is so good too. Because it's really rich and meaty and does a great job. The Montepulciano is actually not from the valley. That's from the Case family down in Langhorne Creek. And Joe gets it specifically so that he's got a contrasting light wine in their world. It's got tremendous lifted fruit. It's only 13% alcohol. They only put it on skins for 9 days. It's got that kind of ruby red colour, and Sue and Joe call it their rosé, and that because the Montepulciano lends itself to that sort of thing.
Lighter in style.
Would go really nicely with seafood too, I reckon.
I would definitely encourage people to check these guys out. If you don't know them already, just looking at what the different scope of wines that they've got available is a really fun wine destination. Jane, we've also had a message here that your toast has been overcooked.
No, I do that specially. I toast it, I wait till it dries out.
Yeah.
I toast it
Get
again,
the crunch.
and then literally it's only just being held together by the butter and grape jelly.
So my children would not eat that. They would send that straight back to the cook. And one more question, Jane, you may or may not know the answer. So if Joe's listening, he might be able to put the answer up for me. Is the wine available in New Zealand? Can people ship from there? We've just had a question from our New Zealand friend.
I reckon if Joe's not answering that, they're on a site called Get Freighted. And I reckon he sends to America. And I reckon Get Freighted works to America. So I'd reckon Get Freighted would probably, there you go.
Yes, yep, Joe says yes, Get Freighted. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Cheers to you, by the way. This is a beautiful wine. Thank you so much. It's fantastic.
I like the idea of the food pairing options. And having to taste them at the same time.
I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on what they want to see more of with the food, because I think Jane's got some pretty quirky options here to try, which I love. So from what I think is, for anyone who's interested in learning more about it, is get on their website and sign up to their newsletter, because interesting things are happening there. It's really fun to support some of these great family-owned wineries who are trying different things, you know, Durif, Shiraz, and splitting them out, try the French versus American. It's really fun to be able to do that. And also, I think, Jane, you may have said this before, but you can buy the bottle from the Greenock pub.
Yep. They've got a really good ordering platformy thing on the computer, on their website. Yeah, on their website. And they're doing takeaway meals, but you can buy single bottles to go with the meals as well.
Oh,
and they're open for 3 hours at a time, so from 5 till 8. So you can go in and pick it up.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful?
And if you do buy a bottle of Ballycroft from Sue and Joe, and you happen to have decided to do it from it, could you please tell them that you decided while you were watching our Zoomy thing? Because
Zoomy thing, it's a very technical term for our new episode called What Was I Drinking?
What Was I Drinking Zoomy thing. And because this is really new for all of us, and we're just really keen to try and look after homegrown.
Yeah.
You know? So we've got a stack of folks we want to talk to in the next few weeks, and if you think it's worth dialing in, let us know. Otherwise, we'll just watch telly.
Or you and I will just sit here and chat for half an hour on a Wednesday night. I'm okay with that. I picture people...
We're socially distanced. We're
That's right.
Houses.
I think, you know, I imagine people are preparing their meal with us in their kitchen with them, which I just adore. I love that idea. But on that note, you know, we are getting to wrap up time. But if anyone's got any other questions, shoot them through now. But I'll just let you know what we're doing next week. We're very excited to be tasting another local family-owned wine, and this is the Quinn Wines. I actually have a bottle of the Grenache here we're going to be talking to. So really excited to get our laughing gear around that one. If you want to drink that wine along with us, you're welcome to, obviously. And you can go to quinwines.com.au and pick that up. That one's $55 a bottle. We're doing the 2017 Grenache. My recommendation is to buy the holiday season pack, because you actually get 6 wines, and there's a couple of different vintages of Shiraz and Riesling in there as well, which would be really interesting. So next week, tune in. We're going to be doing the Quinn Wine Grenache 2017, and you can get that at quinwines.com.au. And I'm going to try and convince Quinny the winemaker to do a little cameo, a little home viewer moment. He doesn't know that yet. And what we've just been asked to send a food match, Jane, before next week. So just a little tidbit. We'll set up
For
what the food
Grenache?
match will be for that.
For Grenache?
Yep.
My absolute
Here we go. We're getting it now live.
My absolute number one combo for Grenache. I've been working in America the last 5 years. My absolute combo, either pastrami or corned beef. So I'm going to be putting a corned beef on, so that I can do corned beef with a mustardy sauce and Grenache, because Grenache and corned beef, Grenache and pastrami. If we were in Texas, Grenache and brisket, absolutely gorgeous.
I love Quinny's just found out that he's going to do a cameo. I don't think he's going to like us very much, Jane.
He'll have to get around the ISO haircuts, because we all need haircuts.
We're a very low cap in a very dark room. All right. Well, look, I've had a ball.
Before you go,
Yeah,
this has literally just jumped up another notch. I think going into winter, we're talking ossobuco, we're talking lamb shanks, and we're probably talking beef. If you can get down to
ragu,
Apex Bakery or Tanunda Bakery or D&M's and get a hold of a potato pie, homemade potato pie, this is the go. It's absolutely.
I love that.
This is cold weather, Shiraz.
Yeah, it is. I've got some Hutt and Vale lamb to cook for Mother's Day.
Done deal.
I reckon that'll be pretty decent too. That's excellent. Well, thank you, Jane, for entertaining us with your take on Ballycroft. Here we are, Small Berry Shiraz American Oak 2017. And thank you, Joe, for sharing that wine with us and making it. It's a cracker.
And thanks for the grape jelly.
Yeah. And we look forward to seeing you same time next week. Tell your friends, get on board. It's casual, it's fun. Ask your questions, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. But in the meantime, be safe, take care, and be really kind to all your friends and family, and those you don't know.
Yeah.
See ya.